a spell. It's been a while since I've done one of these, you probably noticed. You know, life, it happens. But I've decided to take them up again, partially because I've had quite a few requests, and partially because I think it will work nicely in conjunction with the blog that I'm writing at the Pathos Pagan channel, which is called Between the Shadows, The Craft of a Liminal Witch. And so if you're a YouTube fan, or you know, you're just encountering this, then I encourage you to come check it out, because I write about witchcraft and paganism and related issues, and I do a little spell work, some rituals, this and that. Sometimes I give rants of my opinion, but be that as it may. So it's midsummer, and today I'm going to do some midsummer lawn crafting. I call it that because it's what you can gather in your lawn or common areas where you don't have to make a great effort to go out deep into the woods to acquire useful, magical, and medicinal herbs. And so I'm gonna sort of take you around my yard while I do this and talk about some of the herbs and whatnot that are available here, otherwise known as weeds by some people, which of course are plants that grow in places you don't want them to. Now, the reason why midsummer is thought to be a traditional time at which herbs are at the height of their magical power. And it's partially because, of course, it's the longest day of the year. If you're into Wiccan theology, then the god and goddess are, of course, at the fullness of their strength and fertility at this time. But there's actually very good scientific reasons why this is a time when herbs are supposed to be at the height of their magical power. Well, medicinal power, in that case. Leaved herbs and flowers. This is the time of year when most herbs are making the greatest effort towards producing those things. So all of the best life energy, nutrients and qualities are going into leaf stems and flowers right now. If you're going to harvest root herbs, it's often better to do that in the spring or fall. Fall in particular, because once the leaves and stems die back and whatnot, then they have to, especially perennials, have to put effort into making the roots last for the winter. So that's a very good time to do that. And of course, you have to pretty much gather buds and blossoms and things like that in the early spring. So I'm gonna take you on a little tour. I'm gonna start in my back 40, and I'll talk about some of the herbs there. So here we are in my backyard, and right over here we have a bunch of poplar trees. Now these things are murder on my allergies, but they're an incredibly useful plant. The buds that eventually form the leaves are used to make something which you've probably heard of called balm of Gilead. And what that stuff does is that it's a natural preservative. It will preserve your ointments and your creams and whatnot, and it will also enable you to absorb more of the effective qualities of whatever you're putting in the ointment into your skin. So I was out here in the springtime harvesting these already, and what I did with them is I put them into an oil base, right, which in this case was olive oil, and I filled a glass jar and I covered the I put the buds in. They're very sticky, so when you pick them, make sure that you get you put them right into the container that you're going to keep them in. So get the glass jar and bring it with you if that's what you're going to do. Right? And then I covered them over with oil, and I've been leaving them sit in my cupboard for the past several months, absorbing the qualities of it. Now, some people recommend that after 3 months, in which you continually shake the ointments every couple of days or so to make sure that the oil is absorbing the, I call them an oil infusion, right? If you're absorbing the qualities of the herb into the oil, you leave it there for 3 months in a dark place so that it doesn't diminish the quality of the oils that you're using. And you would then strain it out. I generally don't do that though. I tend to leave it in the oil itself unless I have specific dosage requirements that I'm supposed to be doing, because it just keeps absorbing until it's done. Olive oil is particularly good for that. Some people say they've got mold problems. I find that if you've covered the herb completely, you won't. So the other reason why we're back here is one of the herbs I'm going to show you is cinquefoil. Now, this is not the traditional European cinquefoil. This is an erect cinquefoil, that's what it's called. And here in the Okanagan Valley, it's considered to be a noxious weed because it grows everywhere. But for a witch, it's incredibly useful. Now you see these distinctive leaves. Should I perhaps pick this up, do you think? The leaves here are, well, they resemble the leaves of a certain other plant that some of us take medicinally for various ailments, as it were. That's the key to its name, right? The five-leafed leaf cluster here, right? Cinquefoil 5 grass is what that means. So, that's one way in which you find it. Now, these flowers here will be blooming this time of year, these 5-petaled yellow flowers. And that's another way, if you haven't been able to spot it, that you'll be able to spot them. We don't use the flowers. This is one of the components in witch's flying ointment, and it's actually the leaves that we need to absorb. So it's better in that case if you're using just the leaves to harvest it before it flowers, because right now it's concentrating on the flowers, but we can still do it now. And so I'll be picking some of this stuff with my handy dandy funky Mullein, which of course, for those of you who don't know, is a white handled knife with a curved blade. Traditionally, it doesn't need to be this elaborate and fancy. I have a pen knife with a curved blade that is a white handle that I keep in my purse that I call my working Mullein, and that will work just as well. So, you know, it doesn't have to be incredibly fancy, but because this is shaped like this, it's a scythe, so it works to harvest the plant. And I'll just keep doing this for a while until I have a big cluster of it, because I will dry this out and then I'll use it in the flying ointment. So some of you might be wondering, what is witch's flying ointment? It's a psychotropic ointment compound that helps you to trance and astral travel. It has actual measurable effects. It's a bit of a sedative, and it creates the feeling of flying, right? So, and it's made from various poisonous plants. So yes, this is poisonous, do not eat it. Okay, so this stuff right here is why I tell witches never to use Roundup. This is Plantain. It's a very common weed that will grow in your lawn or on paths that are lightly walked upon. And you see these distinctive broad leaves. Obviously some bugs been eating these, but and they're flat. And when they produce a little spear of grass-looking seed things out of the center of them when they're producing their blossoms and seeds. I never really see them turn any color but sort of a green-white. This stuff is incredibly useful for fighting infections. It's the most effective remedy I know against kidney and bladder infections. You can either eat it fresh or you can dry it and make it as a tea. I've found it more effective in some cases than antibiotics. Take your antibiotics anyway, because, you know, you should, and if you've been prescribed them, take them. Science is good, but these are also very effective against that kind of thing. And if you're doing it as a complementary therapy, awesome. They're also good against insect bites. What you would do is you would break off a piece of the leaf and you would chew it to macerate it a little bit. Now, I believe I have this mosquito bite here. And then what you do is you just put it on there. You need like, you know, just a little bit. And you leave it there for a few minutes and it will diminish itching and stinging. If you do this right after you've been stung by a bee or right after you've been, you know, bitten by a mosquito, then it probably won't bother you at all. Actually, I think it's quite tasty. My husband thinks it's a little bitter. Now this stuff right here is locally known as pineapple weed because the top of it vaguely resembles a pineapple, I'm sure. But it's actually a relative of chamomile. It's not the traditional Roman chamomile, but it's related and it works the same way. You'll find it growing in well-trodden paths, which is why it's in my dirt driveway here. And there's a whole bunch of it at our local dog park. And later today, we're going to go down and harvest a whole bunch. But I just wanted to show it to you. Now, it's I've been forgetting about the magical symbolism, so I'll go back now and talk about that a bit. Cinquefoil is, of course, a goddess-associated herb because of the 5, right? And it represents, again, the balance of the 5 elements, you know, the 4 elements of spirit. It's a magical transformative number associated with the planet Venus, right? And the yellow flowers also indicate that it's a solar association, sun energy and stuff. Now, plantain is one of the few herbs that are associated with Jupiter. So you could also use it in spells of success or mysticism, or, well, religion as opposed to mysticism, religious awareness and whatnot. Chamomile is, depending on what source you read, both a solar and a lunar herb. I tend to use it in sun magic, and I tend to make a point of gathering it on the solstice. Basically, if you eat garlic and drink chamomile tea, you'll live forever, because chamomile is good for a whole bunch of different things. It's good for your circulation, it's good for your immune system, it helps fight colds and fevers, it's an anti-anxiety, obviously it's a sleep aid. Yeah, it's a pretty awesome little plant, so keep lots of it. So this is more of that pineapple weed chamomile stuff here, and I wanted to show you this because it's in better shape than the stuff that was in the middle of the dirt road. So that's about what you want, nice big yellow bits like that. Now if you have the time, it's better if you harvest it this way by taking just the flower, because that's the useful part. You'll also need, when you dry it, to put a net underneath it of some kind of a mesh, because, or maybe some parchment paper, because this stuff will all flake off, and that's the operative bit. But often, the reason why I go down to the dog park to harvest it is because there's lots of it. It grows in huge amounts all over. And so I generally just take the whole weed. It's easier and less time consuming. But, you know, harvest mindfully, don't take it all from one spot. Try not to uproot the plant unless you're going to replant it, that kind of thing. Now, actually, over here, the humble dandelion. As you can see right now, it's just starting to do its second bloom. I don't think I really have to describe dandelions much because they're easy to spot because of their bright yellow flowers and their uniquely shaped leaves. This is one of the most useful plants in the world. This is the second reason why you don't use Roundup on your lawn if you're into herbalism. The leaves are an edible green. They're a little bitter, but they're tasty and they're a good blood purifier. I like them anyway, right? The root, which it can be difficult to harvest, is good for all kinds of things. Again, it's a strong blood purifier. It's sometimes used as a coffee substitute. It'll help fight infection. So will a tincture made from its leaves, right? And the flowers themselves are also edible. I have a recipe that makes veggie burgers out of dandelions. It's a mixture of dandelion flour bits and flour and whatnot, right? And of course, it also makes that really lovely traditional dandelion wine, which, you know, you just throw a bunch of the flowers, preferably without the green bits, into a bunch of water, and honey is generally the preferred because it goes well with it. But you can also use sugar, and I don't know, I think it's pretty tasty. It's of course, it's a solar herb, as you might expect from its bright yellow, sun-looking flowers. So check it out, my raspberries are producing already. This is great. This is actually really early. Normally, this doesn't happen for a couple of weeks, but they'll probably produce now until Lunasa. So, yeah. Now, raspberry is an incredibly useful herb. It tends to balance various women's hormones. I think it's the progesterone that it balances more effectively. It's a remedy for delayed menstruation. It also helps for, you know, if you're close to your due date and you're trying to bring on labor. It's a gentle and harmless way to do that. It was described in one book I read as toning your uterus. So, it's also a good blood purifier, and it fights infections, and it's incredibly useful in balancing your hormones during menopause or pre-menopause, as I am currently starting to learn about. So yeah, and of course there's all these really yummy red fruits which I'm going to eat lots of. So obviously I'm not going to be harvesting any red raspberry right now because it's producing fruit. So I'll have to wait until that's done, so I'll probably end up harvesting that for the herbal value around Lunasa. Magically, red raspberry is of course a goddess herb. It's associated with the mysteries of menstruation, the planet Venus, and also, nope, just Venus, I think. I was trying to remember, was it also Mercury? But no, just Venus. Okay, so this is my overgrown, I did have an herb garden going in here, but there's a couple of common herbs that you might find. Lavender is pretty distinctive. That is an herb of Mercury. It's also associated with the element of air. It's a natural sleep aid, antidepressant, and relaxant. The flowers, if you put them in your bath, will help to heal your skin, just as will the essential oil that is pressed from them. It's good for getting rid of scars and stretch marks, and it's absolutely safe to put on your baby's skin, so there's something to keep in mind. Now, of course, these are chives, these little onion grassy looking things here, and they've bloomed. Chives, in addition to being a really tasty herb that goes great on baked potatoes, are also associated with Mars, and they're for protection. And of course, you know, as everybody knows, anything in the onion family that you eat, if you're not allergic to it, is good for you. This here is culinary sage. Now, it'll produce a purple flower when it's blooming, and it's already past that now. Culinary sage is another elemental air plant, and it's also one of the rare Jupiter-associated herbs. It is magically associated with wisdom and knowledge. Used herbally, it is good for, it actually does help to improve your memory, and it will balance out your libido. It'll raise it if it's not what you'd like it to be, and it will suppress it if it's overwhelming. So, handy stuff that way. I'll be picking that today. Now, coming around here in my messy yard, this is, we leave this overgrow because we like the wildflowers in here, but in particular, I'd like to draw your attention to this stuff right here, this viney sort of stuff with the sort of star-shaped leaf patterns that is growing in among all the different flowers here. Now this stuff is called Cleavers. It's a real pain in the butt. The reason why it's called Cleavers is because in addition to the fact that it's a viney plant that will just naturally grow up bigger and taller weeds, as you can see, it has a sticky resinous substance on it, and that sticky resinous substance will cause a rash if it comes in contact with your skin. I once had a piece of this stuff on the inside of my skirt when I was picking elder flowers, and that was not a pleasant experience. But it is one of the most useful herbs there is for urinary infections and ailments. It's good to help get rid of kidney stones. It is also good for clearing up infections, decreasing frequent urination, increasing infrequent urination, and eliminating body waste. The only drawback to this particular plant is that you have to use it fresh. It doesn't do any good dried, which most herbs will. But this won't. So you have to harvest it fresh and use it right away. So this is why I allow it to grow all over my yard, even though it's irritating. Now this stuff here, this is Feverfew. And you see these vaguely chamomile looking flowers. I'm pretty sure it's a relative, but also these frondy sort of fern looking type leaves here and here. This stuff is a time-honored remedy for migraines and headache, but if you want to use it for migraine, you have to take it on a regular basis in a tea or a capsule. You can't just take it and expect it to fix your migraine when you've already got a migraine. But if it's a more common headache, it will help to get rid of that. It's supposed to be good for a variety of nerve disorders. I'm not really certain of the scientific basis of that, so I cannot confirm that. I know that magically it's associated with Venus and therefore is a goddess herb. So, useful stuff. I didn't plant this here, but I left it to grow because, well, it's a handy weed. Now this stuff right here, and also here, this is catnip. Catnip, of course, aside from its psychotropic effects on some cats, also it's a good sleep aid and a relaxant and a muscle relaxant, and it's also very good for anxiety and stress, and it will also help to fight colds and infections like most of the members of the mint family. Now I'm kind of excited because this humble little plant here is a mullein. Now it's very distinctive because it has really fuzzy velvety leaves that are really, they feel nice to touch, they're furry, and that distinctive gray-green color. It obviously just sprouted this year in this little stone patch here, so I'm excited about it. But they actually will grow very tall and stick sort of a wheat-looking spear thing out of the center of them in the fall. But this is the time to harvest them. Mulleins are good for a variety of respiratory ailments. Dried and smoked, it's a traditional remedy for asthma and other dry cough irritations. Made into a tincture or a syrup, it's really good for any variety of coughs, so cold, flu, whatever it might have. It's an infection fighter, and it's a traditional smoking mixture remedy for the local First Nations people. So really great stuff, and I'm really glad it's in my yard. Now those are what mature mulleins look like. Right there. Later on today, we're also going to go down to the local dog park where I'm going to show people how to gather various herbs that are down there. And I know there's a big burdock, so I'm looking forward to that. And there's also a couple of elder trees. Elder is of course a goddess plant, and burdock is associated with Mars, as you might expect. It's, well, I'm sure I can show it to you, but you won't be able to see the distinctive flower that turns into those big round burrs that get on everything in the fall, including your, dog's hair, your jeans, whatever, right? But it's very good for you.